New rumors have come out that Mike Brown was fired due to De'Aaron Fox. Situation was that, according to these rumors, that Mike Brown was criticizing De'Aaron Fox too hard and pushing him really hard, and that Fox did not want to be pushed. He did not like the criticism, especially about him not playing defense. That is the rumors, and that Fox pretty much had it with Mike Brown after the last game that he coached him, in which Fox fouled. I forget who he fouled, but he committed a 4-point play at the end with the foul he gave. That resulted in the Kings losing. After that game, Mike Brown would be shortly fired. There's also the interview that Fox had with Draymond Green, in which he said that he hadn't committed to Sacramento yet with signing an extension because he wanted to play for a winning team. So that led to some people allegedly feeling in the Sacramento Kings front office that they had to fire Mike Brown because that was a sign that Fox did not have faith in Mike Brown as a coach. So all those played in. I've also heard the argument that the front office was using Mike Brown as a scapegoat for their failures to put together a good team. So they needed to blame him, and they were not going to blame Fox, obviously. So they fired Mike Brown. Now, all these things could be true. They could be true. But at the same time, I just can't feel bad for Mike Brown for so many different reasons. I have never thought Mike Brown was a great coach to begin with. I know some people will bring up the Coach of the Year award that he won a few years ago when he was able to lead the Sacramento Kings to the third best record in the West and break off their playoff futility streak of not making the playoffs. That he won Coach of the Year and whatnot. But after that season, the Kings did not improve. They went from being the third best team in the West to I believe I'm not even sure if they made the playoffs last year. I'm just gonna double check to see if they did. Let's see if they did make the playoffs. No, they missed the playoffs last year. So they went from making the playoffs to missing it. So they took a huge drop last year. They didn't improve. They did have a winning record, though. I'll give them that. They finished 46-36 that season, but that was not good enough to get into the playoffs in the West. So they looked past that, the Kings. They didn't blame Mike Brown for that, but they didn't get better. Their record was worse even than the previous year. So they declined last year, and this year they were even worse. They were 14-19 underneath Mike Brown. That's several games below 500. And I know people go back to De'Aaron Fox saying this is all Fox's fault. He tuned out the coach. But what I'll say this, your job as a coach is that you're not just X and O's when it comes to these players. You manage their egos. You have to find ways to motivate them. That's your job. And if De'Aaron Fox has tuned out Mike Brown, then he failed. He failed in getting this team to buy into what he believed in, because you don't see any other guys really coming to his defense. If he was really this great coach, you would hear other guys coming to his defense, really, but no one has. No one seems to miss him. They don't hate him, but you get the vibe from them like, well, he was a good guy, but, it is what it is. I think Malik Monk gave that vibe when he said that the first year it was great with him, and that after that season, teams figured them out and they just never adjusted. They never were able to adjust to how teams had countered their strategy of Mike Brown the first season. So that just shows that Mike Brown is not able to get guys to buy into what he's trying to do on the court. And this was even evident when he was the coach of the Cavs during the first stint with LeBron. That team had their shots to go to the finals during the last few years with Mike Brown. They should have beaten the Magic in 2009, but Mike Brown could not find a way to counter what the Magic were doing in that series, specifically with their three-point shooting. They were killing them with the three-point shooting in that series, and Dwight Howard was just going off, but he couldn't find ways to counter them. I know LeBron deserves the lion's share's blame for that series, but I feel that's also on Mike Brown for not figuring out how to adjust. He failed miserably. And then in 2010, when the Cavs lost to the Celtics, they could have won that series. That was very winnable. The way they went out was pathetic. They went up 2-1, And then the next 3 games, they were pretty much MIA. LeBron especially was MIA. I know some people bring up the Delonte situation, but even if that did go down, I do believe it did. It's really the coach's job to find ways to motivate his players even through a crisis. That's their job. And he couldn't find a way to motivate LeBron during those final 3 games of that series because LeBron was complete ass in that series. The last 3 games, his numbers were garbage. You can even look at the box scores of that series. And I definitely blame that on Mike Brown for not finding a way to motivate him. Granted, LeBron deserves the majority of the blame for losing that series. He definitely deserves it. But I also do blame Mike Brown for not finding ways to motivate his star. He failed miserably. And then when he left the Cavs, he went to the Lakers. And the first year with Mike Brown, the Lakers did well, but I still didn't think he was a good coach. I thought he just inherited a team that had just recently won a title just 2 years earlier. And when he got there, they still had their core guys in Pau Gasol, Kobe Bryant, Bynum, Derek Fisher. So they had a good amount of their core still there just when he arrived there. And in that first season, it was evident that he didn't have control of that team, especially when Artest knocked out James Harden. I thought that was a failure on his part. Granted, Artest is crazy. Or should I say Metta World Peace, whatever he goes by now. But he couldn't control that. He couldn't control him. He didn't know. He couldn't read the situation. Granted that what Artest did was somewhat unpredictable, but still, I blame whenever a player does something stupid like that. That's on the coach. The coach has no boundaries, so the player feels it's okay to do dumb things like that. It's evident Artest did not respect Mike Brown, so he got suspended for 6-7 games, which was I think only 1 or 2 regular season games because they only had 1 or 2 left, and then 4 or 5 playoff games, and and you saw how good of a coach Mike Brown was in that series against the Nuggets. Just the Nuggets team that had no legit star almost upset the Lakers in the first round that season. They pushed the Lakers to 7 games, and they really needed Artest to come back from a suspension to win Game 7. That's how close that series was. So I felt he was really exposed, and then they lost to the Thunder, I believe, in 5 games the next round, and that was pretty much the end of the Kobe Bryant Lakers being a legit playoff team, I felt. So the next season, he started off terribly with the Lakers. It was evident that they tuned him out. They didn't respect him. They had a poor 1-5 start. That's a team that had Kobe Bryant and Pau Gasol, I believe, and I think Dwight Howard. Yeah, they had Dwight Howard to start the season, and Steve Nash. They definitely should have started off better than 1-5. So he got fired. He was canned. He lost control of that team. They just didn't respect him. And then he went to Cleveland again for a short, brief stint, I think for a season. They did horribly. I'm not going to blame him for their terrible record because they were in rebuild mode, but I will blame him for the chemistry problems that team had with Dion Waiters and Kyrie Irving. He had no control of that situation. So I have never viewed Mike Brown as this great coach, this amazing coach. No, he always loses the respect and trust of his players. His teams always tune him out eventually, and they quit on him. This is a common thread with him, and it won't be the last time a team tunes him out, whether it's a star player or just the rest of the team just gives up on him. Sure, you can blame the Sacramento Kings front office and Fox for putting him in this situation, but I would say that I can't feel sorry for him, and no one should. This man is also set financially. This guy is a multi-millionaire times over so many times, and you'll get the contract money from the Kings. I think they signed him to a 3-year extension. This year he's owed, I think, over $8 million. So this man is not going to be poor anytime soon. He has a great job. I wouldn't say great job now, but he has great financial security now. And he's not some regular blue-collar worker or even some white-collar worker who just lost his job that needs to support his family. He's set for life. He'll probably get a good assistant coach job very soon, maybe even in a few months or even next year. And he'll be back on the sidelines collecting that assistant coaching money and the money the Kings owe him. So no one should feel bad for him. He's definitely not a victim. I'm not saying De'Aaron Fox and the Kings are good guys. I'm not saying that, but sometimes in life, the story doesn't have any heroes, really. And there is no victims. It's just a situation where there's no side that you could like, really, or be down for. That's the way I look at it.